Outer Orange.
It's Granblue time! Hello guys and welcome back. OuterOrange here. The last time we did a video that was regarding Granblue has been a hot second. I think the last time I talked about was Beatrice and stuff like that. I went to BRO and I took 19th place with Granblue. Now, not the greatest placing. It's still a pretty good achievement for someone who has been testing Granblue with premium and all that stuff, but it wasn't quite as achieving as getting a top 8 with Granblue and doing just really well overall at Bushrod Springfest for the Atlanta region, or Duluth region as most people call it. It's pretty much around the same area, but pretty much I am here today to show you guys the top 8 Granblue profile that I took. I posted on Twitter, but today we're going to actually go over the deck choices I made, the meta calls I made, all that wonderful stuff, because Granblue is a pretty complex profile, complex deck. It's one of those decks that you look at it, you have no idea what the person was thinking when they put it together, because it's definitely a deck that you may pilot it differently from someone else and all that fun stuff. So today we're going to be kind of breaking that down. Meta is all revolved around Vanguard centric decks still, and some other weird stuff. For example, Bugs is up there as being a type of stall deck. There's Shiryuki being a kind of weird in the middle condition deck where it's rearguard focused while also denying you, while also just doing weird stuff until it loops you. And then we of course have the Regalia decks and the Kagero decks, and you know, and we have the Jewel Knights deck, and we have all these other decks kind of floating around in between that are making it frustrating. Pretty much, long story short, usually you'll pretty much die if your opponent tries a second time. It's kind of been like that for a while, but right now there's kind of this there's a very specific meta where you really need to think of what to do to avoid your opponent playing the game. Dolls is up there, so you kind of need to play around a lot of different concepts. So today I'm going to be going over with you how you, as a Granblue player, or you know, as even a player get into premium, how to deal around these concepts. And within, while I discuss the deck profile, like every choice I made or every card that's in my deck has some kind of solution or some kind of reason why it's in there to deal with these matchups. So I'm going to go ahead and discuss that today, so let's do it. All right, so here we are. We're back to this location. We were here at Flagberg, now we're here again, but this time with Granblue. Crazy, I know. This is just what we're doing. But deck box I used was actually the Dank Ritual deck box for Granblue. I actually, for day 2, I'm pretty sure I put Granblue in here and my strides in here. Right now it's something else. I'm currently doing some copium stuff, so right now I have other decks in here. I've moved it around a little bit. Pretty artwork. I showed this last time, not going to go too far into it this time, as I kind of went on a whole rant last time about it. Very wonderful deck box, highly recommended if you're in Georgia. So I have my sleeves for the strides. I'm using these sleeves. So there's actually a sleeve on the actual card, and then there's this pink sleeve, and then there's actually a Sakura Blossom sleeve on the very bit end of it as well. I really love these. I actually use these a lot on my protect markers and stuff like that. I love this design. I got it actually at Florida. It was really cool, and under this Hatsune Miku thing, it just looks really cool. And then along with the continuing with the Hatsune Miku for the actual sleeves, I'm using these as my actual. This is also Hatsune Miku sleeves. Recently Ultra Pro released a lot of cute little Hatsune Miku sleeves. They released like 4 or 5 different kinds. I haven't to buy them all because I have a problem, but anyway, so I bought them all, and these are one of them. You've seen a couple of the others. This is also part of the same thing. They're also Ultra Pro. I really like the way these came out for Ultra Pro sleeves. They actually look really cool. Best girl Beatrice. So this is Beatrice right here. I did decide to kind of stick to this. I had some options or some decisions I've thought about throughout the time while playtesting, where I thought, oh, maybe I could try something else, but I decided to stick to Beatrice. I call this kind of like my halfway push deck. This deck can actually push really easily and set up drop really fast, but I can also go the control Beatrice route and slow it down if I want to. And that's probably my favorite part about this deck, because originally when I had this built out, or when I was thinking about doing Springfest with this, I had a completely different deck. It was a lot slower. It was more BRO focused, and then as I started testing more and more, I realized I had to speed up the deck a little bit. So I did that while also still including the Beatrice package. Beatrice Bilber Delight, I guess is the best way to put it, and I'll explain as we go. If you don't know what Bilber is, don't worry, you will find out, because I'll probably go on a 10-minute rant about Bilber, so we'll get to it. But anyway, so we're going to start with Beatrice. Beatrice is definitely the boss unit of this deck. Missing Beatrice does screw you pretty fast. You can get out of it, but it's just a lot harder, so you definitely want to hit this card. You have tons of ways to search it out or find it in time, so luckily enough that is not a problem. So this is Beatrice. Pretty much her skill says one place you soul blast, call whatever that isn't her specifically from your drop zone to the board, so you can pretty much call the whole toolbox is there. You call whatever you want. Her secondary skill, that any ghosties in their card game on rearguard circle or guard circle get interested in 5k power, 5k shield. Also an amazing skill, so any ghosty type units, including herself, get the 5k power, 5k shield. And she has a final skill. If your rearguard attacks, if your rearguard retires, you can Counter Blast, call a non-ghosty unit of a grade lower, essentially. I'm sorry, call a ghosty unit of a grade lower. So you can attack with Skull Dragon, retire, and then call something else with this card. It has to be a ghosty after that, and so on and so forth. And you can go down as many grades as you want. You can call it a Skull Dragon and then go instantly to a 0, or you can call a Skull Dragon, go into Jesse, and then Damien, and then Chad the ghosty, or you can go Skull Dragon and into something else. Like, you have a lot of options. You can go Ghost Ship into this as well. You can go Ghost Ship into ghosties and all that stuff. That skill is the least important part of the skill. The most important part is her on-place ability and the fact that you have a bunch of shield, because it makes her insanely tanky, along with a couple other interactions that she can do. Next, I run 3 Skull Dragons. I think this is the first time, maybe the second time in a while, where I've ran my dragons at 3. I think for the longest time I've had them at 2, and I think at some point I even bumped it down to 1. The reason why I have it at 3 right now is actually because of Order Colony, which is the Bugs Mega Colony. So this is against Ghidorah, actually. So strangely enough, I actually didn't need to face Ghidorah to really worry about this. However, the reason why I upped my dragons, and it's not because of the fact that I have to ride stuff every turn, but that is part of it. The reason actually why is because I needed a way to finish Bugs without having to think about what to do in case they do hit me with Ghidorah. One of the best finishers, funnily enough, is Dragon. There's a way in this deck where you can set up dragons in the back row and then move them back up as long as you didn't attack with them. And then I go Bad Bounty into Dragon, and then I swing with another dragon, and I swing with some more dragons. And usually this will actually kill my opponent. It is definitely a very specific situation. It is not meant for everything, and but it is something that I actually did with that I actually tested towards. I figured out that if I run dragons, I can actually do that. I actually almost bumped this up to 4 and almost cut back a different card, but then I decided I'll just stick with 3 and see how it works. And the other reason for dragons is, of course, Megiddo. They're big numbers in case someone falls into damage, all this other stuff. Dragons are just really nice. I also have another reason why I run the dragons, but we'll have to discuss that a little bit later. There's another card in here that really helps with the dragon setup, and I can actually call out dragons on grade 2 turn, which is part of that aggression push that I was talking about, but we'll talk about it later. I have Night Rose as another package. I've been running Night Rose for a while, pretty much since Bad Bounty has come out. One, she's not a bad ride target in case you miss Beatrice, so that's like one thing you can do. If you miss Beatrice, this is the next best ride, and yes, sometimes it does happen. You miss ride, you go into this instead. The downside to this is you don't have any rear guards. The upside to this is pretty much everything else. This isn't insanely good for going first type of turn. In case you want to push, in case you don't want to push, it's probably bad. But if you do want to push, this is actually a really good way to do that. Card is really good. You get 5 attacks. It's not restricted to grade 3 or greater. It is restricted, but in the wrong way. The 10k is restricted, but nothing else is. And yeah, and she's a really insane finisher under Bad Bounty. Under Bad Bounty, you go from Bad Bounty into this, along with a bunch of multi-attacking. I'll show the other card, but it's Night Storm, of course. This and this, like these both together, along with this combination right here, is pretty much just death, because you can just keep cycling these, and then you can go to this, and then go to dragons and all this other stuff. It's just a really insane finisher. This is Night Storm. This is a multi-attacking extender. It says Counter Blast 1. If you attack a Vanguard at the end of that battle, you if it's hollowed, you pretty much call something not on his circle, and then you will usually call Beatrice, and then use Beatrice skill to call a dragon. You can also call it to call something else. You can call Columbard. You never really need to, but you can call Columbard, use Columbard's skill to call something else. You can also just straight up just call a ghost ship in case you don't want a crazy multi-attack. You can call a ghost ship on the other side, so you can go ghost ship it to him and then call another ghost ship, or you can go dragon it to him and another dragon. All these little things you can do. That's its main focus. It really doesn't have anything else. Also, just really good discard father. You know, discard fathers are nice. So that's him. I actually, as you guys know, I haven't ran this card in a hot minute, but finally figured out how to play this card correctly, so I finally actually started running him, but as he definitely extends better than Columbard does. So I finally grew up, guys. I finally grew up. I started running Night Storm in my list. Crazy, I know. The best boy, it is Greedshade the homie, Greedshade the Chad. It's Greedshade, guys. You guys, I don't know how many times you've heard me rant about this if you've seen every Granblue profile I've ever done, but here we go again, guys. This is, I would say this, I was going to actually say this is the second best card in my deck right now, but honestly, it's probably still the best card in my deck right now, just because there's one other card that it utilizes, but I would say that card's better, but because of this card existing, it makes that card better. So this is still the best card in my deck right now. now. Greed Shade is an on-place ability, and it is the best on-place ability ever. And there's actually one card in here that utilizes this so much, and I'll have to go into a full combo explanation about that. But pretty much Greed Shade's skill says, one place you discard a card, you mill 2 cards, and you bring something from your drop zone back to hand. That's not himself. Very, very, very strong card. Very versatile. How you Greed Shade is insanely important. I go on this rant like probably every single time, but a good Granblue player will Greed Shade for the right thing, and a bad Granblue player will pick up the wrong thing and lose the game. That is just how it is. So learn to Greed Shade. Learn to Greed Shade properly. Know what you're picking up. You can pick up your Stride Fathers. You can pick up your Heal Guardians. You can pick up Pieces. You can pick up the Ultimate Stride. You can pick up heals. Not heals. You can pick up Shield. You can pick up stuff you need to guard with. Whatever you need, you pick it up. You do whatever you need to do. There are so many different things that you may need to pick up. You can Beatrice into Greed Shade, which is great. You can on place your Beatrice. Like you can when your turn starts, you can, if you're about to stride, you can place Beatrice, use her skill, Soul Blast, call this, use this skill to get yourself a 3, whatever 3 you want, and then you instantly stride. That is one strat you can do. There is literally dozens of them. This card in particular just never stops with combinations. It just every single time where I think I figured this card out, I always find something new that this card is capable of doing. And in this deck, it's the Bilber Beatrice, whatever I called it earlier. This card fuels Bilber insanely well, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, Greed Shade is insanely good. As you guys can tell, I finally have all 4 copies SP'd. He finally went down to a reasonable price, and also I got a great deal from someone that recently gave me a bunch of cards, so I was able to finally get him fully in SP. What a beautiful man. Absolutely gorgeous thing. There's a lot of texture on him that's kind of hard to see just through this camera alone. Another card that I wasn't expecting to run, and then as time went on and the more testing I did, I ended up putting this card back at a higher number than I used to have him, and that is Columbard. So I used to run Pirate Swordsman Columbard at 2 copies. At some point I ran him at 1. Sometimes I also ran the old one, and I kind of did all this weird stuff. You might be asking yourself why in the world this card is back. It's really just one reason. This is my plan B. It's the best way that I can explain this card. This is a plan B card in case everything goes wrong. I just have to hope that my opponent gives me counterblast is the best way to put it. If my mulligan sucks, this is the next best thing. And I do have a thing that I want to actually counterblast for. And no, it's not Ghost Ship. It's not Jesse either. There's actually another card that I want to find. And so I upped this to 3. I used to have it to 4, and actually used to have Greed Shade to 3. And then I found out that Greed Shade is still too important, so I actually swapped it. Greed Shade fuels the deck still insanely well for me to the point where I had to cut back here. And this was my plan B, and it actually always came in clutch. There wasn't a single game that I played where this card didn't come in handy. Most of it is because people gave me counterblast. I feel like if people didn't give me counterblast, it probably would have been a little bit harder to utilize this card. I probably would have had to use it later. Maybe I wouldn't use it at all, because the counterblast is still pretty heavy sometimes. You have to be very cautious how you use it, but hey, it worked for me. A lot of times I'm like, oh man, I'm screwed. Oh, they gave me a counterblast. Cool, now I can do whatever I want. We run a Skeleton Cannoneer. This card is still insanely important, and I would say even more so important now into certain matchups. Let me just break this down for you. You see dolls, you have to hyper mill to see all your stuff as soon as possible. With the hyper mill build that I have set up, it's pretty easy to get to this as quick as possible to then be able to utilize your Denial Griffin plays. They're costly, but they're pretty necessary. It stops a lot of combos. It stops dolls, it stops regalia, it stops a lot of stuff that you want to stop, so that way then you can kill on your turn. It's mainly your little crutch. You can also just draw off of it, which is just really good. Sometimes even the draw is just really nice, just bringing him out. Sometimes even bringing him out on Obadiah isn't terrible, as strange as it sounds. There's times where I brought him back on Obadiah and I would retire something on my opponent's side just to screw with them if it was just a really important card that they needed. Super rare interaction, but it has happened. But the main thing is, of course, you Negaruli into Beatrice into this, you hollow it, you draw a card, and you retire something on your opponent's side. That's the main juicy bones of it. But honestly, it's just like, it's also here for like those really weird matchups, because it's not just dolls. I've used this against Regalia to pop their booster so they can't restand their stuff. I've used this against dolls. It didn't come as often in my Bushiroad Springfest experience. In Springfest, this card didn't come as often as it came up in BRO, surprisingly enough. So in BRO, I use this a lot more. Here, I used it a little less. The next one we of course have is Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship is just your beat stick. It's a 24k whenever it attacks, just 24/7, unless on another Night Rose, then it's 29. And you know, it just does this thing. It's your draw card. It's your beater. It's the second strongest beater in your deck technically. So yeah, it's great. It's just Ghost Ship. And last but not least, I run Jesse Ghosty. I still haven't found a reason to take this card out. I'm still iffy about keeping it in. Part of the reason why I keep keep it in just so I don't G-assist with my grade 2s. There really isn't that many grade 2s I can think of that are better than this one outside from the current grade 2s that are present. Like, yeah, I guess I could go like something like this, but honestly, I kind of like the counter charger. There's so many times where I'll just use this even under Obadiah just to get the extra counter charge for whatever setup. But sometimes there's situations where I'm being pushed to a point where my counter blasts are kind of low and I have bad bounty. I just need one extra counter blast, so I'll actually just call this card out instead and do my thing with it. And also, it's a 10k shield. If I ever just need to guard with it, it's also a 10k shield on top of that. Let me now reveal to you guys the best card well, the second best card in the deck. I could almost even consider it the best card in the deck, but it's second best because this card helps it. So it is Bilber. This is Sylvan Horned Beast Bilber. This is an overdress card, and it is probably the best overdress card printed in the overdress series outside of stuff that's good for premium, specifically Granblue. This card is actually insane. This card is the reason why I won majority of my games, or I was able to outplay my opponent fast enough. I was able to unbrick. I was able to do everything I needed to do because this card was in my deck. I have been testing this card for a while, and anyone that knows me that knew kind of what I was building towards knows how I feel about this card. This card is actually nuts. It has so much utility, so much potential, like not even potential, the potential is already there. It already does this thing. This card is just amazing. And yes, I got it in holo because I just could not get in holo. I'm glad this came in holo. If it was only common, I would have been a little sad. But all right, let's talk about this card. Its card says on rear guard, Soul Blast, retire this unit. Look at 3 cards from top of your deck. Call 1 to a back row circle. Discard the rest. That card cannot move to another rear guard circle to end of turn. Why does this matter? Sounds kind of heavy, right? It's a Soul Blast, you got retired, all this and that. This is an extender to every other card in your deck. I don't know how else to explain that, but this card becomes something else on top of also setting up your drop zone. So this is insanely important. Why is this important? So let's say there's been so many times where this has happened. You're on grade 1, you don't have a 2, you might not even have a 3. So you use this skill, you Soul Blast to retire, you look at top 3. Oh my god, it's a Greed Shade. So you look at top 3, one's a Greed Shade, one's a Columbard, and one's like another Greed Shade or something, or maybe it's a Skull Dragon, whatever. Cool. You call the Greed Shade, you discard the other 2, you discard with the Greed Shade, and then you get a grade 2 to hand, and now you have a ride target. Let's say that you have the same situation with Beatrice. Say you need Beatrice so you do the same exact play. You look at top 3. Oh my gosh, it's a Greed Shade. Discard the rest. Use Greed Shade skill. Now you have Beatrice. If Beatrice doesn't drop it, now you put it back to hand. Say you can even Columbard off of this card. You can Columbard off this card too. So say you rode a different grade 2, but then you use Bilber's skill and Columbard's in your top 3. Cool. Now you can call Columbard, Counterblast, get your card, call it to the board. Now here comes the funniest part. You can set up with this card. So this card is insanely good for setup, and it actually counters bugs. So what you can do is you can call one out, use its skill. Let's say in your top 3 is a dragon, so you're gonna call the dragon and you're just gonna leave him there because he can't move up anyway, so the dragon is just gonna stay there. Then you get another Bilber and you do it again. Say in your top whatever is like, I don't know, like a ghost ship. So now you're gonna put your ghost ship in the back row, and they're just gonna chill there. They're just gonna chill. Now Bugs has a terrible, doesn't really like when you have stuff in the back row stood. They like stuff to be rested. So you just leave those 2 back there, and then next turn, rather you grade 2 game or not, you just move up the cards, and now you have a draw and an insane beater just chilling that are about to slam your opponent in the face. Anytime I did a setup like this, my opponent was literally stressing out. They see the dragon, they see the ghost ship, they see whatever. Sometimes it's Greed Shade in the back, and they're crying. Not just against Bugs, against any other matchups. There's been situations where I had double Skull Dragons on the board. All I do is just move them up, and now I'm ready to just kill on that very turn when I ride up to Beatrice. There are times where I set this up on turn 1 if I have enough of the Crit Soul Girls, and I just go crazy. There are so many lines of play that come into hand because of this card right here. Say I need to set up my drop zone. This is literally this card pretty much says mill 3. Well, plus itself. It essentially says Soul Blast a card, which is a mill, retire this, which is another mill, and then look at top 3. You're essentially milling 5 cards off of this card. It's essentially what you're doing. You're putting 5 cards in your drop. So that is insane. It means you can plus your engine really fast. Are you short a heal guardian? Mill, 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 get your heal guardian. Do you not have Beatrice? Mill, 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 get your Beatrice. Oh my gosh, I need Skull Dragon set up. Let's mill, 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 get to that. It will help you unbrick so much faster by just using this card right here. I cannot begin to explain all the utility that this card brings. Do you need perfect guards and drop? Well, maybe top 3 you can get them. Do you need a booster? Because it doesn't indicate it can't boost. You can put it in the back row and you can just straight boost with it. And like I said, the setup is insane. You can set up 2 dragons in the back row with this card on turn 1 if you really want to. It's a high roll at that point. Like I said, this card does require some high roll, but the fact that you can just do it is just insane. And you can just keep recursioning this card. Say in top 3 you see another one of these copies, you can call it out and do it again. Another crazy play you can do, top 3 Beatrice, use Beatrice skill, Soul Blast, call whatever you want from drop. If you've already done like 1 or 2 Bilbers, you should have a fat ass drop to call whatever you want. You use her skill, you call it a ghost ship. You use her skill, you call it a Jessie. You use her skill, you call it a dragon. You can put the dragon in the front row. It utilizes the fact that it makes Granblue will have an insanely good grade 2 game. The part of why I did this was just to have a really good grade 2 game. It made me be able to outplay people on their grade 2 turn. They tried to grade 2 game me, I'm like, cool, let me just Bilber real quick. And the best part about this is this requires literally no counterblast. This requires no CB to do anything. You can have a 20 or so drop zone without your opponent ever swinging at you. So you can set up really fast and really quick. And this is mainly for matchups like Regalia, matchups like Dolls, matchups that are like Bugs where you have to kill them before they stride. It's mainly into those matchups. It's matchups where I don't want to see them stride a second time. This is really good into Jewel Knights too. I lost in my Swiss rounds against Jewel Knights, but then I opened the nut. In top 8, I had a Bilber, a Greechade, a Columbard, and a PG, and I had a Beatrice. I had literally the nut combo. I had everything in my hand. I could ride the Ghosty, get the double draw, call the Bilber, do the deck thinning, then call the Columbard, call whatever I want, do the Greechade skill. I pretty much had everything I needed. I had the full toolbox in my hand to whatever I want, and it literally won me the game. I rushed my Jewel Knights player down like crazy. I did not give him a second to breathe. I rushed him down, I killed him, and it just didn't matter. His Crystal Luster didn't matter. So that's Bilber, guys. I can probably go on another hour about Bilber. I highly recommend for those of you guys out there to test this card. If you want a way to have a better grade 2 game or speed up your style or whatever it is to do, this is one of the best cards to put in your deck. I originally was testing it at 1, 2, 3 copies. At some point I only had 1 and I just used Columbard or whatever to use it, and then I was like, this card is too good to be at 1. It has to be at max copies. The only downside to this card, there's only one, it's just that it's a 5k. It's a 5k guard. That's its only downside. Everything else is an upside. Now, I was mentioning a plan B. So in case I don't open this card, Columbard would be my plan B. So I would use Columbard to fetch this card out, and if people give me counterblast, which they usually did. So I was like, so in case I didn't open this card, I would just force it out with Columbard, which is another reason why I upped Columbard, because I actually had people ask me why I pushed Columbard back to 3 when I was so against having Columbard at 3 for the long. Well, I had him at 2, even at 1. Like, I was really weird about Columbard for the longest time, but because this card is that important, I actually push my Columbards higher. This is amazing. With Beatrice and Bilber, this card it's just butter. It's just oil and butter and anything else you want to call it. But yeah, that's Bilber. We're gonna put Bilber over there. Let's talk about the other cards since I spent like probably 10 minutes talking about that. Next I run 3 Douse. This is Doubt the Ghosty. I had to kind of cut back a little bit to make room for the grade 1s and stuff like that, so I actually did lower on my Douse. I used to run this at 4. I pushed it back to 3 just because I didn't really have a choice, and also just makes it nice to have an extra crit in my trigger lineup, so it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I run 3 Douse. This essentially is just, it's best as a ride target. It also deals with some weird guard tricks that people may throw at you. If in case they say no zeros, you can get around it with a card like this. It just makes it a lot easier to do that. So I do actually run 3 of these, and like I said, it has 2 abilities. You can on place on Vanguard, draw a card. You could draw a card off your starter, draw a card of this, and discard a card. It lets you go through your deck a little faster. See your boy Bilber. Bilber is my spirit animal, and then its other skill, it's just a perfect guard. So it just exists as a perfect guard. It's just good stuff. It's also a ghosty, so it is actually 5k shield on top of that. So you can also use it that way. This card actually came in super clutch for me, like super clutch for me as a 5k guard. There were situations where I had to guard with 5ks and I only had like perfect guards in hand, and this really helped with that situation. This is a card that I didn't think I was ever gonna up, but I upped it, and it is Negro Bone. Now the only reason I upped Negro Bone was because of Bilber. Because this deck became a heavier milling deck, I had to start upping my Negro Bones because I didn't want to deck out. If I ran this at 1, I would probably deck out every single game I played. I kid you freaking not. I would have decked out every single game, but because I upped this card, it definitely helped. Now Bilber sets up your drop really nice, so this actually helps, but there actually is more to this card than just that. If I really want to push my opponent to the actual death and I just want to Skull Dragon them after Skull Dragon them, this card comes in so clutch. So what you can do, and we're gonna bring back our boy here, Bilber. So what you can do, you Bilber, right? You Bilber a couple times, you mill out some bones, whatever you, and then if you really want to push your opponent even faster, you use the bone skill, discard some cards, call out dragons, and then you swing with those dragons. And on grade 2, by the way, you can just swing with the dragons, and then you push your opponent to like 3-4 damage. And then next turn you ride Beatrice, or you know, you can on grade 2 you can Bilber again to maybe potentially get another dragon out, whatever you want to do. But then on Beatrice, do it again. Beatrice skill, Soap Blast, call a dragon, Final Bone, call another dragon. Boom, you're probably killing your opponent. They can't, even through heal guards and everything, they can't take all those dragons that early on. They will probably die. So that is another thing that you can do with these. This is my really aggressive, this is like the super high roll. This is the, I'm trying to kill my opponent. You can actually ask my teammate. I faced him in locals. I did this exact play that I just talked to you, and yeah, he died. He died. He didn't even see his grade 3. He was just dead. He was playing Regalia, by the way, and yeah, I just completely obliterated him before he could do anything. He didn't have he had like 1 heal guardian, but he didn't have 2. I pushed him to like 5 damage, and then I Beatriced him, and then under Beatrice I started looping the ghosty units, so I kept swinging. After all the dragons and everything, he took the L. Cunnel. So this is Cunnel. This is Earth Elemental Cunnel. This is a GB1, by the way. The card itself, well, it doesn't say that in this version, but it's a GB1 locked card. A lot of people ask me why this over Hanoi. Why don't you have a Hanoi in your deck? This is our final grade 1, so there's no Hanoi. So I personally am a big advocate of hating Hanoi. I do not like Hanoi, mainly in this deck. Maybe in a deck like Bermuda, I actually don't mind Hanoi, but in this deck, for me personally, because of how I run my ratios, counterblasts are really important to me. So because of that, using Hanoi is kind of hard for me sometimes, and also setting her up really sucks as well. Unless I Beatrice Negro Lily into her, sometimes it's really hard to keep her out on the board because opponents will try and knock her out as quickly as possible. Now the other reason why I took out Hanoi is because I really only needed Hanoi against dolls. Some could even argue that I needed against Shirayuki, but actually this Kano actually counters Shirayuki as well. Kano also makes the bugs matchup easier. Kano also deals with other decks a lot better, whereas Hanoi only really provided me an out to 1 matchup, and that was dolls. So then what I did with against dolls instead is I just played around what they tried to do instead of just playing Hanoi. So to me, that was the better out. I have, aside from the 1 matchup I had, which I believe was against Simon, I don't remember exactly who, but it was someone who played dolls extremely well. Aside, I faced that person and they did annihilate me, but that's because I didn't know what to do. At the time, I did not have the experience to deal with dolls to know what to do. Now that I do, I still would not run Hanoi. I personally I build my deck in a way where I will constantly see my pieces because of Bilber and Griche carrying the deck so hard. I will usually have the heal guards to deal with their stuff. If I don't, or if I usually will not be having that issue. If I can also push them really fast if need be, or I will deny them where it's needed. If I watch the dolls play or misplay, I will usually utilize on it and just kill them that way. I actually faced a dolls player in rounds. They left an Alice out, and I really would I swung everything I had into it just to get rid of it, but I also denied them counterblast to make them not be able to pop off. I also run a couple other cards that helps me just deal with the dolls matchup a lot better, and just other matchups as well. It's not just that, because I usually do not run a card for just 1 purpose. There's usually multiple purposes behind it. So Kano has multiple purposes, whereas Hanoi to me has 1 purpose, and I just don't think it's that great of a purpose for me to decide to run it. I would rather run this card, and I do think this card in current meta is actually just better. You also also notice that I don't have Belle in here. As I mentioned before, I can hyper mill my deck to about 20 cards really fast against matchups like Narukami. If I do that, I do not care about them binding my stuff anymore. I have no care. They can bind my stuff all they want. I have about 20 cards in my drop zone, so they'll bind like 4 of them. Cool, whatever. I don't care. I'm still doing what I want. I'm still gonna Skull Dragon you. I'm still gonna Great I'm still gonna Combat. I'm gonna Beatrice. I'm gonna Night Storm you. I'm gonna Night Rose. I'm gonna do all my stuff. So if my drop zone is bigger than they can bind, I'm just gonna kill them. And I tested against Ty Smith, who by the way I tested with Bugs and Narukami, and I tested Narukami against other people too. But what I found out really quickly is if I just Bilber, Great Columbard, pretty much do all this right here, I just don't care. So Belle just became absolutely useless to me, so I took her out. I do believe if you run the Path the Ghosty engine, then in that case she is probably much more useful, because that's actually what I used to have. I used to have the Path the Ghosty engine, so Belle made more sense. But nowadays my deck's just too fast for something like Narukami. I just don't care. Granblue is actually usually a very slow deck when it comes to the build up to 3. I think in current meta that is hard to go around. I personally think that setting up as soon as possible, so that way you have a pop-off turn every single turn. So normally Granblue players, they set up like around the Great Shade turn. So whenever they have a Great Shade in their hand, if they have a Calm and if one gives the counter blast, they kind of start setting up there. I start setting up the turn before. The reason being is you have to. You want to make sure you have everything you need to deal with the matchup that you're about to face, while also not decking out, while also pushing your opponent. If you are not pushing your opponent against decks where you need to push your opponent, you're probably going to lose. A good example is Narukami, Bugs, Regalia. Those are 3 examples. Dolls is an iffy one because sometimes you want to push them because giving them counter blast is too risky. But those 3 decks, you want to push him. There are also other decks you want to push. DP is another good example. Push them to the end. They literally have a very late game type of approach. They do everything late game. Their entire pressure turn is all late game. If you can kill off their late game, they don't have a game anymore. They can't win if they don't reach their exculpate, whatever it's called. Like, that's their main win con. If they can't get to it, you're gonna win. And they usually have to Geoglass first before they go into it. Some play the rush build where they try to go for exculpate first and all this other stuff. It's a little more high roll. You can do it, but it's harder. But regardless, even against that, if I have enough stuff in my drop, and if I have all my stuff set up, and if I have my heal gardens, all this stuff, I'm usually okay. So it's not really a problem. But with that being said, I feel that having the ability to rush down or have a good grade 2 game is just so important right now, and that's part of the reason why I have my deck built the way I do. Of course, we run Ganache, Countercharger, Hollow It, Countercharge 2 at the end of turn. Great card, definitely versatile. Next I have Chappie. A lot of people ask me about Chappie actually. I'm actually surprised people ask me about Chappie because I feel like I've been running Chappie ever since I started playing Granblue. Mainly because of Solom. I watched one of his videos a while back. I think it was his Kakaitis list, and he ran Chappie, and I read the card and I was like, that's pretty cool. I'll play it. So I played it. And this is back before Beatrice. Under Beatrice, this is a 15k shield. There's a couple of reasons for this. Before, I used to run this to have a going second rush play with Ben the Ghosty. But actually, nowadays, I just use this to set up. So there are some situations, if I stride, I have to stride to Bad Bounty first. If I see this card early enough, and by the way, this skill is 1 place on Guard Circle, search your deck for up to 1 Granblue card and put it to your drops and shuffle your deck. So pretty much when you guard with it, you take something from your deck and you drop it. So let's say I'm 1 piece short from Bad Bounty, and those pieces would normally be one of these, one of these, one of these, maybe even 2 of these, one of these, and maybe a booster, and maybe something like this, whatever it is. So say I'm 1 piece short. Let's pretend I don't have Night Storm. Oh no, I don't have Night Storm. How am I supposed to do my Bad Bounty play? Oh look, I have this card in my hand. It says I guard with it, and then I get the piece that I was missing. Boom. And now I'm set up for Bad Bounty. So sometimes I hyper mill with Bilber, and I straight off the surface go straight into Bad Bounty, because at that point, if I already have my drop set up, what am I dying for? The only thing I'm dying for is essentially to deck in my deck to have more triggers, right? So why don't we just skip that part and just go straight into the killing? If I've already pushed my opponent pretty far to the point where they're kind of in this weird spot of being at 4 damage or so, I could probably take the chance to go into Bad Bounty and kill them before it matters. If you were to Neganora, you can actually Neganora with Chappie, and the skill will activate. You can Neganora, grab Chappie from your drop zone, and then guard with it, and the skill will activate with it, so you can actually deck thin your deck. It's also really good against that Bugs matchup. This is one of the cards they can just throw in the back, just leave it back there. It's just another target for having stuff in your back row. You know, some people are like, oh no, like I have to put my triggers down or whatever. Just put this down. Put this down instead. You know, you don't need it for a while, then move it up later, intercept with it for Beatrice, whatever. But you can just kind of leave it back here with like another card or whatever. So I run it for that reason. Sometimes I'll do it with Ganache too. I'll just call Ganache back here and it's like, all right, now I'm not doing with anything with them, right? They're just shield, right? So I can just put them back there. They're not triggers, which are higher shield, so I can just put these cards back there instead. This is Bicken. I actually learned about this card, or I learned about the specifications of this card after I faced a really good Granblue player in a BRO. It was one of the people I lost to. We played a mirror match Beatrice match, and the only reason he won was because he Bickened me. Now Bicken says when you place on guard circle, if your opponent has attacked 2 or more times with their Vanguard, pretty much this becomes a perfect card. A straight perfect card. This card is so important right now. Let's just pretend that your opponent hits OT and their Vanguard restands. That OT doesn't matter anymore. Why does that OT not matter? Because normally player will go drive check 1, drive check 2, drive check 3, OT. And normally you're like, oh my god, and they're about to restand their Vanguard, and their Vanguard's gonna have 100 million, and I don't have a perfect card. What do? I die here, right? No, not with this card. Not with this card. The power could be 100 bazillion trillion bazillion million with like 20 zeros at the end of it, and it just doesn't matter because this card nullifies it. And it doesn't require 2 cards. This card's actually nuts for a 10k shield, and for your opponent restanding your Vanguard and being able to attack with it with whatever number it is, with however many crits on it, this card just nullifies the entire attack. Mirror Granblue will go bad bounty into a grade 3, right? That next grade 3 you nullify completely. That's literally what lost me the game in BRO. He had this card. If he didn't have this card, he wouldn't have survived, but because he had the card, he survived my lethal blow, and then he McGeared me and I lost. Quite a few like kind of matchups that have their Vanguard restanding, and especially Regalia has a ton of drive checks. You really another example is actually DP. DP this card goes around that too, and normally people won't know that you have the Bicken in hand. I usually make it my highest priority to make sure people have no idea that this card's in my hand. I will try, if I draw into this card, this is like the card that I will, especially if I know they're going to have a multiple standing Vanguard, I'm going to keep this card in my hand the entire time. I will not guard with it until I absolutely have to guard with it. That way they put all effects on Vanguard, all effects on Vanguard, all effects on Vanguard, 5 crit, 78k, oh my gosh, 3 drive checks, and I'm like, cool. Go for it. Have fun. I actually talked to Yellow about this card. He actually bumped his up to, in his Shirayuki list, he actually runs 2 Bickens because he has a way to search them out and recycle them. Well, funnily enough, in Murakumo, it's not like an insane super thing. It requires a lot, but he can do it. So he actually runs the Bickens in there as well for that very reason. I'm the one that showed it to him, showed him the power of Bicken, and then he took it and utilized it in his Shirayuki list. So props to him for that. So yeah, great card. Definitely recommend running it. So next we have our Heal Guardians. Heal Guardians are super importante. I think I used to run a 2-2 split, maybe even a 3-1 split. Maybe I did a 1-3 split. I don't know. I think I used to run differently, but now I'm running all 4. Maybe because I could recycle them a lot. I could use them early. I could grade 2 game out. Because of Bilber, I can kind of do multiple Heal Guardians a lot faster because of Greed Shade and all this other stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend running, definitely running 4 of those. Next we have OT. OT is, broken as heck, especially in this deck. This card is busted. Ripping this on your opponent is pretty much GG. If this card is still in your deck and you have 10 cards left in your deck, you probably won the game. Unless they OT out of it, they're probably dead. So yeah, card's brilliant. You get a crit, you heal a card, you draw 2 cards, and you give 100 million on top of a 10k front. This card's just insane. For of the Chad, the Ghosties, this card is of course very important. It's a 20k shield under Beatrice. It's also your Strife Father. It's a Ghostie, so you can intercept with it off of Beatrice. So just, it's another thing I didn't mention about Jessie. You can actually use Jessie for like multi-attacking with Beatrice. That's actually another reason why I run Jessie. It's just a little small fun fact. But anyway, run the next best card. I've talked about how I use all the soul and all this stuff, and I do all these crazy things. How in the world am I not running out of soul? And it's thanks to this card. This is Rough Seas Banshee. Her skill says on rearguard circle points a soul draw card. You can use this card off of Bilber, by the way. I know I'm bringing Bilber back into the conversation, but guess what? Bilber just never leaves the conversation to begin with. I can use Bilber's skill, look at top 3, put this card to the board, then put this card to soul draw card, call a reach it out from hand, drop a card, mill 2 cards, bring Bilber back to hand to then soul blast this card that I just put into soul to then do it all over again. And I hope that made sense. But pretty much you can recursion with these 2 cards and Shade pretty freaking easily, by the way. It definitely a up there candidate for what's carrying my deck right now. I hate the fact that it's 5k defenses. That's probably the worst part about this card, but everything else is just so good that it's worth sacrificing. We have one of the regular Banshee. This is Wild Seas Banshees, pretty much the same thing as this, but under a GB1, and it's when your Vanguard attacks, you point to soul, draw a card, and give your Vanguard 10k. So essentially this makes your Vanguard better. I literally run this mainly for the soul. It's really rare. I pretty much consider her a 5th one of these, but just a late game 5th one of these. Like she pretty much just does and fulfills the same role that these fulfill, like literally the same role. The only difference is I can start this on turn 1 and I can have to start this on stride. So that's the only difference between 2. This is a late game type of approach I can use, and this is an early game type of approach I can use. So I just run her at 1 of the crit sentinels, nice 30k shield. This card actually has come up quite a few times. There are times where I'm like, oh, that's a really awkward number, 38. Oh yeah, I'll just pop this down, 40 if I'm on grade 2, or you know, 40 to 42 if I'm on grade 3, whatever. Last but not least, we run Mick the Ghosty and family. So Mick the Ghosty is a card that you can probably consider cutting back to a crit if you want. You could cut back to this. I run this for another reason. I run it literally just not deck out. It also just scares my opponent whenever I call this card out and start putting 10k somewhere. It just adds more pressure for the late game finisher. Sometimes early on it's also really good just giving 10k to like my Night Storm, or maybe I'm attacking with Jesse, make my Jesse 29. There's all these little nice little magic numbers, just perfect numbers to make. So yeah, this card just pretty much utilizes that. The stand effect is just almost never there, but the GP one's really good. It also goes back to deck whenever it's retired pretty much, which is just really nice because, you know, like I said, deck outs can be a problem. So going on to our strides, we will start with Bad Bounty. Boom, boom, 2 copies of Bad Bounty. Bad Bounty is your finisher. Bad Bounty can be your first stride. Bad Bounty can be whatever you want it to be. Bad Bounty is just such a generic and perfect card. Its skill literally says at the end of the battle, attacked, counterblast, discard 3 cards, rewrite it any grade 3. Any grade 3 you want from drop, it doesn't matter as long as it's a grade 3, you can rewrite it. So you can utilize this in so many different ways. You can write to Night Rose, you can write to Beatrice, you can write into the dragon, like the overdressed dragon, the one that's in Ghidorah. You can ride into other grade 3s. You can ride into Lunar Break Nightstorm guy if that's what you're in the mood for. You can ride into cont'd, or again they go and you know you can do stuff there and get the extra crit or whatever. There's so many little things you can do. This card is just perfect. I have killed a lot of times on this specific card. That's not even funny. Rather I first stride on it or a second stride on it, doesn't really matter. I usually, if I ride Bad Bounty, I usually kill unless they OT out of it, but usually this is the killer. If I'm riding this, you're dying. The Ghosty Great King Obadiah. A lot of people, funnily enough, will not deny me Columbard, but they'll deny me having Counterblast for strides. It's actually hilarious the amount of times people try to deny me Counterblast for strides, because then I just go into this thing. Its skill says on place mill 3. If you mill 2 with hollow units, you can call Ghosty specifically to this back row unit, and then you just exist. So the nicest part about it is the fact that you can mill 3. Then of course, but the other skill is really great too, because you can call Beatrice back here and then use Beatrice skill to then soul blast and call a dragon or a ghost ship or whatever else. It pretty much enables you to have a turn still without a single counterblast, by the way. So yeah, this is usually my go-to if people deny me counterblast on stride, which I've seen happen way more times than it's strangely enough. Out of all the things to deny me, people will deny me counterblast for specifically striding because they know that big Obadiah exists and they just know that I just plus off of it so much, so they'll just deny me that. So I go into this guy, the Ghosty Great Emperor Big OB. So this is your milling machine. It says counterblast, flip a G-zone unit face up, and then you can search your deck for 5 cards, mill them, and then you can call 2 for every card in your G-zone flipped, essentially, and they get 5k. So essentially, if you can enable more flips early on, this card just gets way better, just enormously in power. Like if you have 3 flips, you can pretty much call a whole board for free. Striding this first is still like doesn't feel that great, especially now with Tempest Sphere and Zazan gone. However, it's still not terrible. You can kind of set up, do your thing, and kind of just exist as a Granblue player, and you know, get your counter charging going, get your multi attack going, get your Beatrice, get your ghost ships, get your draws, whatever. On top of milling 5 cards, which essentially just decked into your deck like crazy. If you still have OT in there, makes you hit OT faster, and it's a triple drive, and they get 5k power. So this still is an amazing stride. Night Rose. This is Pirate King of the Rosites Twilight Night Rose. This card is hilarious. Why is this hilarious? Because I didn't start actually striding into this card until like 5 days ago. Actually, I would say my last stream is the first time I actually strode into this card. And then I realized something very funny. this card's good. I was like, wait a second. This card ain't bad. This card ain't bad at all. Now, I was originally playing this card to deal with Link Choker better in case they try to lock my board. But then I read the card on stream as I was about to deck out. I couldn't go into Bad Bounty. And I was like, you know what? Let's just play this card. Let's see what happens. And then I realized, I was like, wow, this card isn't bad at all. I call whatever I want. I haul it all. I get a crit. I get 5k power. And it kind of sounded, and I flip something, I flip a copy of itself. It sounded so bad when I read it, but then when I actually did the skill and I was calling my setup, and then I realized that I could actually do the Night Rose Beatrice thing, a Nightstorm Beatrice thing under even this card, and you know, kind of set up really well. And the fact that I could call whatever I want for my drops and all this stuff, I was like, wow, this isn't terrible. And the Vanguard gets a crit too after if you call 3 or more, which is actually really spicy. Like, I was like, wow, this ain't bad at all. Why is it taking me this long to stride into this card? I actually strode into this card under BSF too. Surprisingly enough, I had a Great Nature player that pretty much said Progenitor Dragoned me. So essentially, when they were to lose, they wouldn't lose. And they were pretty much what they were trying to do is they were trying to slow down the game. Me thinking what to do, this was the best card to stall on. I was like, so they're trying to stall because they're trying to have an extra turn. I asked them 100 times what in the world the Progenitor Dragon does, the Great Nature one. Well, it's the Zoo Nation one. And they pretty much said that the whole turn stops. So I was like, okay, how could I pressure them to the point where they take the damage and they have to lose into it? So I rode this card and then I flipped the other one for the skill. I gave it the crit. So if they wanted, and then I called a dragon, and then I called some other stuff to kind of help with utility, like countercharging, all that stuff. The reason being is because they obviously wanted to lose to stall out the game to end the turn. This bad girl has a crit on her. So they had kind of some options here. They take this with the crit on it, or they take the dragons that are going to be, they're probably going to have triggers on them because my drive checks are probably going to hit triggers. So because of that, I forced them to have to make a hard decision. I was like, all right, I'm going to go into this. All right, swing face, has a crit on it, has power, has all this other stuff. Have fun. Good luck. They said no guard. I think it went crit heal something. I don't remember exactly. And they were taking 3 damage. So even through the Progenitor Dragon skill, they still have to take more damage on top of that, and it lost them the game. So I saw if I had gone to something like this, it would have costed me more resources because this requires more resources. I have to have a board. This just freely creates a board. This makes me create a board. So I would have to use my hand and all this other stuff. On top of the fact that I'm increasing deck out. If I went to Obadiah, same situation, I'm increasing the chance of me decking out as the Great Nature player is trying to stall me. So I was like, screw it. I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to make them have to make a hard decision. And they just said no guard and Vanguard, and they died. So surprisingly enough, this card actually comes in handy. It's not terrible. If you do not have Megiddo, if you can't go into Megiddo, and you're about to deck out, this is actually not a bad card to go into. So we have Megiddo. So this is Megiddo. I actually got the waifu one. I don't have this on my deck list. I actually put this in this morning, so I just got it in the mail. But I'm using the Megiddo one, and I'm actually using the other one in my Bermuda deck because I want to be funny. Just something about a bunch of different cute little fish things with a big scary dragon just cracks me up. And then the other way, vice versa, you have all these pirate stuff going on, then you have this thing. So it cracks me up. So I finally bought this. But anyway, this is Megiddo. It's an ultimate strat finisher. Essentially, it says, you know, Counterblast 2, call whatever you want from hand or drop, and then they can all attack from everywhere. And then next I have Balanara. This card I did not use at all during Springfest. I never had a reason to it because, again, I either first tried Bad Bounty or I never had a reason to go into this card. Not that I'm saying it's bad. I just hadn't had a chance to use it yet, at least in recent times. I think I used it in like one of my things a while back. I don't remember. I used it at some point, just not recently. Pretty much this lets you kind of guard weirdly. It makes your opponent have to guard like really awkwardly because anytime they were to guard, you can discard a card, stop their guard. Unless it's a perfect guard, you can stop those, or specifically protect markers. So it's just kind of like a weird thing, a weird card you can go into. It also activates your strides to be free. So sometimes you can go into this if you feel like you need to stride for free. A good example is Bugs. In case you really feel you need more access to stride for free, this is another way to kind of help with that, to utilize not having to keep 2 cards in your hand all the time that are grade 3s and all that stuff. So that's the Progenitor Dragon. Put in a lot more G-guards I think people normally do. Pretty sure I have 7. But anyway, we'll start with the easier ones. This is Neganora. Soul Blast, choose 2 cards, choose a face down G-guard, put it face up. Choose a 2 different grades from your drop zone, call them to guard circle, essentially. And yeah, just really high shield. I call Chappies, like you can call PGs. This helps you around the Zoa matchup. There's just a lot of stuff. It goes around guard restricts, goes around any BS. This card just kind of goes around it. It's great. It does count. It causes Soul Blast. It can be kind of heavy. So yeah, that's that. Next around Dismal. This was the card I was really deciding with another card, and I decided to keep the Dismal. Pretty much Dismal, I can target something and it gets resist essentially, and I just can't target it. It's a rear guard. This helps me in case I absolutely have to go into a Negroli play. It's really rare. For the most part, this isn't a problem. Sometimes there's some weird matchups like Aqua Force and Tachikaze. They'll try and target this, or they'll try and target something, and I'd rather than not. I do have Kano as a backup to Kano, since it has to be chosen first. It kind of helps me in case I have other rear guards that I want to keep safe, but mainly it's just because I can go to Negroli play and then set up for whatever I need, whether I'm going into Beatrice into Greed Shade, or Beatrice into a counter charger, or Beatrice into Mick the Ghosty for the 10k, whatever it is that I need. That helps me set up. And this card just pretty much is my emergency button. A 2 Negro Lilies. I actually run both of the different SPs. I have the old one and the new one. It confused the judge that was deck checking me. He was like, wait a second, and then he was like, oh, they're 2 different ones. So this is Negro Lily. I talked about Negro Lily a lot. Counter Blast, retire a unit to then call a Ghosty unit, and that's pretty much it. And she gets 10k. But now you can call Beatrice and then use Beatrice skill to then Soul Blast and call something else. So you can call Cannoneer, you can call Greed Shade, you can call your counter charger, you can call Ganache off of it. You can call other stuff if you want to set it up. You can call a dragon. I've done you can do that if you want to set up dragons. You can do that. You can do some weird stuff with this card. Negro mode, another just beefy number in case I just really don't want to go into Lily or Negro mode, because Negro mode is behind a GB1. I can go into this card. It says Soul Blast when placed on G. For every 5 cards in my drop, I get 5k power. Obviously, since I'm Bilbering a lot, my drop zone will usually be pretty huge, so this actually becomes insanely high shield if I need it. Usually pretty good. She comes in handy pretty well, so this card is definitely good. Now, last but not least, let me talk about my weirdest tech in here, and that is Colbert. Colbert's skill requires a discard to do his skill, and I actually went into this card a lot. Why would I run this card? Because let's look at our G guards right here. Soul Blast, Counter Blast. This one's not too bad. This one's kind of whatever. Soul Blast. So this requires a soul, this requires a counter blast, this requires a soul. Sometimes I don't have anything to target. I don't really want to go into this. This is lower shield, this is higher shield, by the way, like way higher shield. So in situations where I don't want to use my resources, what in the world do I do? What if I'm GB locked? What if I don't want to use my counter blast? What if I don't need to? What if I don't have enough soul? Like what do I do? You go into this card. This card's skill says discard a card, and then for every 2 cards that your opponent has, you get 5k shield. So this card essentially kind of fulfills this role of doing something to flip, but this card just does it better because it also gains really high shield, so you can kind of utilize when you want to use this. And a discard sounds painful, but you're discarding 1 for essentially getting like 20k shield on top of its 15k shield, and it's also just really good flips, and then go into a GB1 card if you need to. You can use this and then go into Negro Lily for your skeleton Cannoneer play, whatever you want to do. This doesn't have to be necessary skeleton Cannoneer, but yeah, essentially this is a way out from using resources while also still G guarding, while also still utilizing like a way to have shield. I was debating between this, and you will never believe this, but I was debating between this. I was debating between Colburn, Immortal Galleon. I finally took Immortal Galleon from my deck. You'll notice that he is not in here at all. I took him out. The reason being is I actually prioritized this. As crazy as it sounds, Bugs matchups don't let you G-guard anyway, so why in the world would I have this many? I could just have an extra stride. I never go into this thing, and whatever I do, I actually just prefer to go into this. This doesn't require any resources, so this is a good card to go into when you don't have resources, but I feel like at that point you should be dead, and I think at that point you're just stalling to like not die, and I think you're going to die anyway. The only time you ever even see yourself go into this card is probably under Ghidorah, but even then I should already be dead by then. But yeah, that is the deck profile. That was a lot of talking. My throat is actually dying. This has been a crazy event. I think every single card in my deck has had some kind of purpose into very specific matchups. If you guys enjoyed the video, hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me the questions below. I'm happy to answer, and yeah, all that fun stuff. So you guys can message me on my Twitter, you guys can talk to me on Discord, whatever it is that floats your boat. I am here for y'all. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's probably gonna be really long, and I'm so sorry for that. I feel like my Granblue videos just get longer and longer every time I record these. I don't really know anymore. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you had fun. Thank you to my team. Thank you to Randy and Clayton for being amazing teammates, helping me through. Thank you to everybody I tested with. Thank you VANGUARD and Matt and Zen and Randy, of course, and Clayton and Pete homies that tested at locals. Thank you everybody that has helped me become a better premium player. Everyone that's helped me, even Little Tex VANGUARD is a judge, and he's kind of one of the people that has actually given me a lot of weird rulings, especially into Daihozan and stuff like that, that really helped me understand that matchup and a couple other stuff, and just helped me understand how premium in general just works as a format with all the funky little rules. So very awesome stuff. Thank you so much to everybody who has been here for me. Thank you everybody who cheered me on. Yay, I really appreciate it. I really loved it. It was just really nice to see there's a lot of support that y'all brought, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for being here for me. I try to be here for y'all as much as I can. I'm here for you guys, and yeah, as always, I hope you guys enjoy my channel. I think we've come a long way as a channel. We're about to hit 2,000 subscribers, and on top of that, we are also as a deck builder, I feel like I've grown a lot. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Das Vidania. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hey, your starter. Don't forget your quick shield, importante. Don't forget your Zorga crit. Don't forget your perfect guard. Don't forget your secondary and your third and your fourth and your fifth, and your sixth and your Baskirk seventh, and don't forget your protect 2 markers, even though you rarely use them. Don't forget about your other protect marker. Don't forget about the secondary protect marker to your other protect marker. I know it's the same crap, but don't forget those. Don't forget Megami. Megami's important. Don't forget your 10k Cardfight Vanguard G thing, and don't forget this either. Don't forget your Night Rose. You need your Night Rose too, and don't forget your center marker. Don't forget that, and don't forget your other +1 crit Zorga card. Yeah, don't forget that, and don't forget this either. Don't forget your mascot. You need your mascot. Yeah, don't forget all this. You need every single bit of this. This is more important than the actual deck is. It's more important than your stride zone. This is more important than anything else. If you don't have this, then how are you playing your cards, man? How are you playing your cards without all this? How you doing it?